You're pulled towards sin because you're helping it. And then if you just stop, say, well, I just sinned a little bit, but you stop, you're still not where you were. You've moved a little bit towards sin. The Spirit's still pulling just as hard. Sin is still pulling just as hard. But now that you're on this side, it's a little easier to take another step and slide further off into sin. And to slide further off into sin. Every time you help it along, you slide further and you become under the law. You become under the condemnation. But if you start out from any point, here's where I left off. Let's start over here. I'm still being pulled evenly. So let's move towards righteousness. It's just as easy to move that direction. I'm still not where I want to be, but I've moved that way. Let's take another step, and I move a little bit more that way. I'm out from under the law, but I'm still not where I want to be. Take another little step. I love my neighbor. I help him when his car is broke down. I help him when he's broke. I give money to someone that appears to be broke. I love my neighbor. Every time I do that, I move a little bit further into righteousness. Now I'm a long ways from that sin. Now when I falter, I'm not moving into sin. I'm still in righteousness, and I can still move back, and I'm still out from under the law. The two natures of ourselves pull in opposite directions. We don't have to submit to one that's the sinful nature. We can submit to the other that is the spiritual nature. It's just as easy. It's a perfect balance. It's a decision that we have to make. And Paul even goes on to say, the acts of the sinful nature are obvious. And he's telling you, these are the things that you don't want to step towards. Sexual immorality, impurity, debauchery, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, discord, jealousy, fits of rage, selfish ambition. These are, he started out with the really rotten ones. Jealousy, that's a sin. Fits of rage. How many of you, without raising your hand, how many of you on the road last week lost it? That's moving you towards sin. Every time you do that, that's a difficult one to avoid, because you see, when you're in the center here and you're well balanced and sin is pulling you on this direction, really rotten sin is way over there. Satan ain't going to tempt you with the really rotten sin because he knows you ain't going to take 10 steps the first time. What he'll get you with is the simple little bits. Somebody cuts you off, let me lose it. Somebody shortchanged me at the grocery store, let me go tell her boss and rake her over the coals. Rather than just going back and talking to the lady that you had the problem with to start with. Instead of dealing with it with these fruits, the fruits of the Spirit, they start in 22. They are love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Then he says something else that's really interesting. Against such things there is no law. That's your freedom from the law. Those things are easy to do. The other day, yesterday, we had dinner with my parents. And we were talking about my nephew. Not my blood nephew. He's a nephew by a past marriage. The young man told me something the other day that just baffled me. He told me that he considered me to be a father. I don't understand it. I told my dad, I don't understand this. I said, all I've ever done to the young man was treat him with simple human decency. I didn't go out of my way to do anything for him. I just talked to him nice. I listened to him when he talked. I helped him when he needed help. But he considers me his father. And Dad said, well, it was in something that you said that's in rare today. Simple human decency. If we just treat each other with love, and we're coming up on Valentine's Day. I mean, come on. This whole holiday is about love. This is an important message these days. I got to say something about that. Well, the Lord, you'll be going in one direction real good, and the Lord just turn you another way. I got to say something about Valentine's Day and holidays in general. There's nothing wrong with holidays. There's nothing wrong with celebrating Valentine's Day. There's nothing wrong with celebrating Christmas. There's nothing wrong with celebrating Thanksgiving. But let me tell you something. The world tries to take everything that Christ has given us and tries to pigeonhole it and make it something about the world so that we will not pay attention to it. Love isn't a holiday. It's an everyday. Love isn't Valentine's Day. It's every day that you wake up. Thanksgiving isn't a holiday. Every day you should be thankful. Christmas isn't the holiday where we celebrate Christ's birthday. We should celebrate His birth every day. It's the greatest gift that's ever been given to us. And love came from that gift. And thanksgiving came from that gift. Every time God has settled what He wanted for man, Satan tried to push him away from it. I'm telling you, the Lord has just moved me in a whole other direction. Every time that God has settled what He wanted for man, Satan got in there and pushed us away from it. In the beginning, before the first covenant, when we were in the Garden of Eden, it was perfection for man. It was what God had wanted. And Satan got in there and pushed us away from it. Tempted us, told us there was something more, lied to us. We go along, we get to the first covenant. God says, okay, I've got a way to solve it. We're going to give them a few rules to follow. We're going to tell them what they can't do. Let them live free. Satan took him 4,000 years this time, but he wormed his way in again, and he pushed us away from it. He had us over-define the law to the point where on Saturday we was walking like this. So we get the new covenant. We get Jesus. And Jesus is the simplest thing to follow. Love your neighbor as you would love yourself. That's all it takes. And what has Satan done? He's wormed his way in again, and he's twisted it again. They try to take away from the church what is ours, and they try to make it the world's. They try to tell you that love is not the compassion between you and your neighbor, that it's a lust between a man and a woman. They try to tell you that love should only be celebrated on one day of a year. They try to tell you that Thanksgiving is something that we had between the Pilgrims and the Indians. Thanksgiving is what we have for God because He gave us His Son to forgive us of our sins, and we are free from those sins. There is hope in the world. And the hope in the world is in Jesus Christ because He is not dead. He is not in a tomb. He is not closed up. He is risen and He is not there. And we have hope in this world. And this hope is love and thanksgiving and Christ. And they are not holidays. Celebrate the holiday. I'm not saying don't. Celebrate the holiday. But when you celebrate the holiday,